the discussion with our first topic today, technology in design. With unprecedented growth in this sector, with what the metaverse and digital architecture, the future is constantly in a state of evolution. This is just as applicable to design as every other field. How do we take the state of flux to cater to a better future? Our panel of speakers will share their take on the same. And this session is going to be moderated by none other than Mr. Architect Yatin Pandya, Principal at Footprints Ahmedabad, who delves into academics and practice with equal vigor. Please join us, welcome Architect Yatin Pandya.
Namaskar, very good afternoon. I guess with my punch I should be hiding it behind the podium. But I think I see the audience, I'm the only one having it, so I thought, let me flaunt it. So I hope you don't mind being here. We are talking about technology and its integration with space making, especially for the designers. How does this apply? So I'm simply reminded of, for each professional, how does technology come in play, and one of the humorous example that you probably have heard is, how many professionals do you need to change the bulb? So we have Snyder and the Jekka here, and if you ask the product manufacturer how many of those you need to change the bulb, they would say none, the bulb will change by itself. If you ask the efficient engineers how many engineers do you need to change the bulb, they would say just maybe half, because they're very efficient. They can do 2 at a time. How many psychoanalysts do you need to change the bulb? 1, but the bulb must be willing to change. How many mystery writers do you need to change the bulb? 2, 1 to almost put it on, and 2nd to give a last minute twist. How many lawyers do you need to change the bulb? 3, 2 to argue how to do it, and 3rd one to give a judgment, this is the way to do. How many social media ever do you need to change the bulb? At least 202. 1 to put it on, 2nd to photograph and upload, and 200 to like it. But how many designers do you need to change the bulb? 1,000. 1 to hold the bulb, and 999 to rotate the room. So with that kind of out-of-the-box thinking, we have to understand how technology comes into the play, into our profession. Now you're wondering, why am I here? As they say, the naughtiest student is made a monitor. So that's the case, why I'm here. I'm not meant to speak as a monitor, but force of habit, I'll do a little bit. But the good news is I'm not showing my work, because you say a bit of work before. So just to set the tone for the panel, we already have the tone coming in, but we have quite a brilliant array of speakers and panelists who will share their views and demonstrate through their work. So all I'm doing is just outlining that. So can we have a short beginning? Architecture and technology, architecture versus technology, architecture in technology, technology in architecture. You can take it different ways. I leave the point of view to each. Next please, just quickly. Well, there are many ways to define what technology is about, whether it's automation, mechanics, computer coming in, the mechanization of the processes, robotics, etc., etc. Next. So we have to figure out what of that, 4 different contexts, what applies to architecture. So it's not a generic idea, it's specific to different takes. Next please. As we saw, typically a holistic design would be the one that goes through aesthetic filter, cultural appropriateness, timeless aesthetic, kind of environmental sustainability. So if all of these are demands, technology is the one that keeps changing the fastest, the race to, you can more or less say, to be the constant. So in that context, how do we adapt to that? Next please. So technology-inspired architecture, and how does that transform the way we think or way we apply? Next. So it's not just the application of some tools, but thinking differently, if at all, and again for the collective good. Next, please. As it was mentioned, the pandemic gave us a pause, much needed pause, that we had all given up that, this planet, we were too many, it's not going to work. We have far exceeded what we have damaged to the earth, but just undo system out of the system, we saw that earth would correct itself. So that taught us lessons of equity, plurality, humility, frugality, sustainability. So I think these are the ones if we can carry forward and consciously think of our directions for future. So humanism and of course sustainability. Next. Coexistence. Next. So again, turning this into a virtue by pondering and taking a course of action further. Next, please. Technology, basically the bottom line is to improve the quality of life, and how in our own endeavor will we apply to do so. Next. We all go in different levels, different stages, technology come in play. What I'm saying is that I wish we take a platform of discussion further than that. So this is all agreed. Architecture in concept, technology in conception of architecture. Next. Next, please. In visualization, in communication. Next. In its production even now. Next, please. And of course the mass production and realization. Next. Or post-occupancy monitoring and management. Next. But what we need to more focus and discuss is that how responsive and conscious are we in applying that appropriately. This is Einstein's statement. I fear the day the technology will surpass the human interaction, the world will have a generation of idiots. Next. It has become apparently obvious that our technology has exceeded our humanity. Next, please. So, we had once the idea of smart city, and probably that was technology-centric. Next, please. Was it a vision or a slogan? We see the outcome is all over the world, and we see more or less similar. This is back home in India, with very diverse. Next, please. Kind of a place historically, culturally, climatically, and yet a similar outcome. Next, please. Both of these are Kerala. We should think what of Kerala, what of Jaipur, and what of Kolkata is more appropriate and part of us. Conscious for the place and people. Next, please. You all seen this? Technology for convenience, next please, versus technology when it starts commanding. So it's in that light what the panelists can discuss. Loss of human control in creative decisions. So nothing to blame or nothing to take one side, but how do we bring in more of that, where architecture can shake hands with technology for different contexts, to bring in the human touch. Technology rooted to place in its realities, loss of spontaneity and creative interventions, technology not as a hype, just to be different and modern, but as part of the routine, degree of technology, because it's a generic term, so what level of predominance for given context should it have, engaging with human emotions. Is technology against the tradition? Is it a contradiction to say the two terms? Next. Next. Spontaneity, diversity of natural or organic thing versus this. We had a technology which brought family together, the other one even on a dining table separate was apart. In one used to chain the rock, now we chain ourselves. Next. And with technology change, has our human endeavor or DNA changed as much 100 years apart? Next. There were technologies of a different kind time ago. There was once, without technology, we had to push the child to come in and work. Now we have to take child out to play. Next. So glamour, beauty, what of technology we want to integrate, which is more integral, which is more humane, which is more timeless, and which is more conscious. Next. So we definitely can make a difference, empower through design and technology as simply a tool to help us improve the quality of life, where any development ensures the harmony between human and human and nature. These are the two fundamental responsibilities of design and development we are able to meet with. I'm sure that would be a better planet to live in. And I think in India we already have this plethora of wisdom. So if we have this mantra of inspired by yesterday and yet aspire for tomorrow, we might be somewhere, right? So let's dialogue and diagnose and deliver the cure. So as doctor, patients come to us for diagnosing what's wrong and then of course treating the cure. So all the panelists here would give us that cure about interface of technology and architecture. So let me introduce the glitterati that's going to be in front of you here. All right, so we have the next slide. So just to give a little bit of face to their work, and this also giving them a little extra edge for speaking their mind about the 3 minutes that they have. But I'm saving them to give the overview of some of the projects that they've been doing. Next. So starting with the lady, Priya Daniel, she's both in India as well as in Singapore. And these are the kind of range of projects they've been doing. So when they speak their opinion, you have the backdrop impression of the kind of work they're coming from. Next, please. Then we have architect Nilanjan Gopal and range of projects they've been doing. Next, please. Since 95, they've been active. Next. Then we have architect Dinesh Verma, architect Kutub Mandviwala, and the range of projects from industrial to institutional to spiritual, architect Sanjay Gulati, and you can see the application of technology from conception to application. Next, please. And we have architect Srinivas Shankoke, basically the vice president and coming from the product manufacturer's perspective of being the forerunner of producing technology and how we can apply it meaningfully and consciously in our own. So may I invite all the dignitaries to be on stage and begin the dialogue. And while they come in, I pick up two kind of sentences that we found. Please come in. Oh, okay. So there is a small presentation by Mr. Verma, and then there will be panelists coming in. There's one format discussed, or one thought it could be, is that each panelist be here. They can see the screen, I suppose, here, or if they prefer to be there, but each one in turn can come and use their 3 minutes of making an opening statement. Of course, with the time lost, it amounts to 30 seconds now. But so you can all be here. If you wish to look at the screen. Okay, so if you wish to do that, then one after the other, not to waste time, you can be here and make your opening presentations. And sure.
Thank you, Mr. I think that was really great, a full-fledged introduction made our work much more easier. So here I go for my 3 minutes, and then what I'm just trying to tell you is something very simple. Just let us close our eyes and imagine as to what you visualize when you hear the word technology. Something which is dark, something which is dark blue, something. So this is something which we visualize, something which is in these type of colors, this type of animated thing, and then we expect something like this to help us to design and innovate. Something which is broad, which is there nowadays everywhere, is something like what we call the web. and we all are dependent on it. And this was something in Estonia which I saw, which was very, very interesting, where somebody tried to make a web out of technology. And this is in the technological museum there. What was interesting was very nicely, neatly created, crafted web made out of resistors, transistors, all types of electronic items. So here we are looking at transiting a neat spider web into a technological marvel. And this is what we are looking for. We say fine, there's something like artificial intelligence, and that's what they're trying to say, that that's where the brain and all this. But unfortunately they have forgotten that that is not the real scan of the brain. This is the scan of the brain, and we call it the human intelligence. And as what Google has done it, he has really gone deep into the thing, and they made a detailed scan which puts it as the real intelligence. What I'm trying to say is that it's our mind which matters, and the intelligence and what the mind can do is the real intelligence and not the artificial intelligence. Because when we look at ourselves, each one of us have a mind which thinks different. Rest of the body, whether it's my liver or your liver, we all know the mind is. They all work the same way. And that is what we say, that technologically we are the same. But when it comes to design, all of us are different. This is something very interesting which has happened, I think 5-6 years back, when there was a big consortium of car manufacturers, and they were trying to define as to what would be the car of tomorrow be like. And we won't believe it, that when they sat down and started thinking, they found out that technologically all cars of tomorrow will be the same. But what will be different will be the design. And they describe the cars of tomorrow as moving sculptures. So this is what I am trying to say, is the difference between design and technology. Technology can be the same, but design will not be. So we have technology on one side, we have design on the other side, and we take the help of technology to design. That's what my thinking is. And it is, you have different types of ways to take the help from technology. But what if there's only technology? And all of us are sitting, writing equations, putting computing norms, and putting A plus B plus C is equal to whatever it is. Then what will we have? We'll just have everything which is just cut, paste and things like that. So, just to end my 3 minutes, as designers, we hold the key of optimizing technology. More power to human intelligence than artificial intelligence. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. We'd like to next invite Kutub Mandviwala, Principal Architect at Mandviwala Kutub and Associates, Mumbai.
So I think good morning or good afternoon everyone. I think a lot has been spoken on design and technology. So I'll just try and go as fast as possible. Basically I just say that as architects, what starts is the design based on the vision and the art that we are talking about. And this is the basics of any architect. And from there, one moves down to technology. So personally, I believe that everything starts from the design, from the vision, from the art, what is there in a person's mind, and then you move to the next level. I have a few examples of few masters who have done their work. I'll just try, since we're running short on time, I'll just go as fast as possible. So this is the museum by Frank Perry, and we see that how one starts with a sketch. And this is exactly what we talk of. That we talk of it, the kind of the sketches which give you the volumetric forms. It gives you, the sketches gives you the functional, the formal and the contextual part. what you talk of a concept of a project. And then you move to the next level. And we try to create this thing in form of these kind of models which are created. These models made out of paper, made out of cardboards, and this gives us what we used to call the scale. To move next is what he did, was he created, or he went and he searched for technology to create a building like this. And at that point of time, he was able to use the CATIA or the aviation technology to create a kind of a format which helped him to create the final product which he was looking at. Similar to this is the example of what Mr. Malik explained us, and taking it forward here, where Mr. The architect Gaudi had these sketches, and with the sketches he kind of made a model which was made out of these wires and made out of plaster kind of materials which are available, or plaster, and from there he created a reverse model where he used the wires to understand the structure and the framework of the architecture inspired by nature. So again, we see here where we have the initial concepts coming out, and then the concepts go to the next level, and there's an innovation or the following of technology which happens to support the design rather than technology driving the design. And then we see a piece of architecture which is still standing strong and which is generated and which is done with a final structural system which was very innovative. We move to the Jewish Museum, where we talk of kind of an floating, progressing, rising, breathing structure, which was basically to express the sentiments of the people who were there, or whose memory it was. And here we see a different kind of this. So the sketch starts the overall thing again, and then the technology is more here used in form of material, the zinc, which keeps on changing its colors, and the steel structures with the silhouettes of lights coming inside and expressing the walk when you walk through that whole premises. So again, the technology comes in at a time when the design has already got its concept and has got its own basics right. When we think of color drawer and we think of the turning torso and we talk about the stacked the stacked pieces, cubes, and here we talk of a kind of a structure where again the design and the concept again comes out from the basis of design. And then to support that, we started working on the ecoskeletal system of the human, inspired by the human, and how we kind of created a structure which was based on these structural systems. So the idea is basically that design always precedes technology. It is where we start from, that's what we have learned, that's what we have been doing, and that's what we will always be doing for time to come again. Thank you.
I would like to thank Architects and Interiors India as well as Jaguar, Schneider for bringing us all together. Can I have the presentation to put forward my views? What I'm going to talk about is something that is very close to my heart. It's about how technology affects all of us as human beings. How technology helps in design. And I strongly feel that technology is an enabler. And it was amply shown in the presentation of Kamal Malik, how architecture is influenced by technology and how it can actually bring about a total sensorial experience. Because I strongly feel if we are relying too much on the technology part of it in the design, sometimes it makes it very visual. We tend to make forms very iconic, while the other four senses of the humans, that is the olfactory or the gustatory or the auditory or even the tactile, is missing. So I would put forward my views as to how these five senses can be easily brought together with technology, demonstrating it through various projects, some small projects of ours. The first is the visual, where forms can be inspired by technology, brought together by technology. This was a site in the hills of Kumaon, Ranikhet, surrounded by thick forests of pine trees, and we felt it was important to address that issue of being cocooned in nature. So we decided to have a form which is inspired by the cocoon, which is a natural form, and this was a gated community of about 8 villas on a 2-acre site, where the forms were like cocoons. The whole concept came from the idea of a caterpillar where it breaks the cocoon and goes into a flight, becoming a butterfly, where these pods could multiply vertically or horizontally, prefabricated structures, because it's not easy to execute projects in remote areas in the hills, and how these pods could be multi-purposely used as the different spaces. So 5 or 6 such modules would come together to form one villa. The auditory. How can we bring about that or titillate that sense of hearing in our architecture through musical fountains to other aspects? One site we did in Kashmir long back, which was on the edge of the river. That was me 10 years back, and you can see what architecture does to us as professionals, and we age so easily. So we diverted the river. Fortunately, it was a Kashmir tourism project, so we could do that, and now the river flows through the site. So from every part of this Pahalgam club, you can hear the river, sense the river, see it all day long. This is our studio in Delhi. It's in the basement actually, and again, the challenge in Delhi is hardly any space. Most offices are in the basement, and how to bring back that experience where there is the constant sound of the stream from the time you enter the office. This is a rainwater which is harvested and it is circulated throughout the day. The olfactory, very important, but sometimes we negate this part, the sense of smell. Can our architecture invite the sense of that smell? Can it bring the aroma of flowers, herbs that we plant in our gardens, or the smell of the fresh breeze touching our hair? Or how many of us love the smell of the wet earth? You know, right after it rains, when it falls on the dry ground. Can architecture provide for these courtyards? Well, in our small little studio, again, the courtyard, which is like a stepwell or inspired by the Kunds of Gujarat, where I studied, where it becomes a space for interaction. Even while it rains, you can smell the wet earth while you work or you discuss. The tactile. Now, this is something which is a sense where it invites, where architecture or design can almost encourages us to touch and feel the structure, most beautifully demonstrated in most of works of Carlo Scarpa, the Italian architect, the Palazzo Guerin, and here you can see how the smooth Italian marble polished contrasting with the rough concrete and the exposed brickwork and the shiny metal. It almost encourages you to touch and feel that cold steel polished to perfection and against that rough granite on the right hand side. Also in our small courtyard at the office, or which becomes a lunch courtyard, we walk barefoot on it, on this pebbled courtyard. Or on this terrace, my little house, on the terrace you can walk on the soft grass, or when you sit, you have this pebbled little area where you can sit, and of course it transforms into a different space at night. It not only brings the 5 senses together, but the 5 elements of nature, the earth and the sky and the air and everything together. And finally, the gustatory. How does design arouse that sense of taste? So Johanni Palasmar describes this very differently. He says if you want to actually touch, if you have seen these laminated visiting cards or a nice menu of a restaurant, the menu card where the food photograph is so nice and there is a spot lamination where you are encouraged to touch it and feel it, where he says where your eyes want to touch and your hands want to taste. This work again by Carlos Carver, you can see the glass, the smooth glass, and that rough granite which has the name inscribed in smooth polish. You almost enticed to touch it. I think that is very important in architecture. So this is how I would define it, where it should be something which we call organic texture, which reflects our core values of sustainability, design, modernity, and everything which is synthesized into a contemporary form, which is aesthetically pleasing, but it should be technologically advanced at the same time. So it is organic architecture that is inspired by the two strong forces of nature and technology. So today we have to think whether our idea of a window, is it the 13-inch monitor? Is the idea of fresh air the air conditioner? Do we see apples on a fruit tree or on the supermarket shelf? Because I strongly feel that technology should bring us closer to nature and not far from it. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll just do a brief introduction of the organization that I work for. It's Gensler I work for. It's been in business for almost 57 years now. Started in 1965. They have more than 6,500 people. In India, we have close to 130 people. There are 29 practice areas. So starting from aviation to sports stadiums, to workplace design, to commercial office buildings, mixed use, we do everything. Just wanted to give an introduction to set the context. And when I started my career in 91, so there was only one person who used to work on CAD. And we did not have any printers to get the right output. So that's where my journey started. And today it's, you have young minds who are so tech savvy, they're using these tools which are available to them like nobody can imagine. And they are building these beautiful structures and defining new spaces and using this technology to be more sustainable, more conscious, and Gensler also has a goal to be net zero by 2030. So all our projects, what we are trying to do or build, have to be net zero. So every project that we do, we have an embedded team that takes care of sustainability, that guides us or makes sure that we don't do things that are not sustainable, and we are moving closer to net zero buildings. So I'll just touch upon a few of the technology tools. So in Gensler, what we have, what we call is a technology team, design technology team, that also, these are our own colleagues, architects, who have chosen their career paths to explore ways to develop tools which would help us as designers to be more, like these tools are all means to an end. They are not going to be like push of a button, they are going to produce a design. Unless you are creative, unless you are doing the right things or providing the right inputs, I don't think you can do much with these technology tools. So G-Blocks is one such tool. When you're doing large master plans, you're trying to figure out the mix of real estate, like how much residential, how much commercial, how much entertainment. How do you manage to fit that FAR into those large master plans like 100-acre sites? And how do you play with that to make sure to getting the right designs, and which are sustainable designs? There are tools which also help us to understand sustainability of these structures or the light penetration into these buildings. So this is an internal tool developed by Gensler which helps our colleagues to design projects which are more sustainable and which are more in tune with times. Then sustainable simulations. This is, I think, we use a lot of consultants are there who help us with energy modeling. But this is an internal tool which our designers can quickly use to study the orientation, the wind direction, everything that's possible to help you be more sustainable. G-flows, again, this is to help the workplace designers to do quick test fits. Again, these are not tools to like on a push of a button, create a design. You have to provide data like what kind of settings you want, what kind of sizes you want, how many rooms you want. So you have to provide in all this data. So there are people like we saw this slide by where Einstein said we are going to be producing idiots. So I don't agree with that. The generation now, like it's very different from our generation. They are much more advanced, they are much more learned in terms of how to use these tools more effectively to be more creative. So that's, I believe this generation is much smarter, much sharper than we were. We don't even know how to use these push buttons. So the new generation, I'm really proud that we have these tools. These tools, technology is to assist us as architects to create great designs. Thank you.
Hi everyone, wonderful to be here, catch up with familiar faces and meet new ones too. Just gonna share my views on the subject. Okay, so we're all surrounded by technology, whether tangible or intangible. And now with sophisticated data environments, the intangible becomes measurable. And so with all this computing analysis that's available, the goal should actually be to to design for the intangible. So that means happier families, enhanced work productivity, better educational performance, or even a better night's sleep, all aided by technology. So I believe that technology and innovation in technology can also solve bigger, more complex problems at a bigger scale. Like, for example, I'm going to show a project in Saudi Arabia, which is nicknamed the Line. So imagine a traditional city that consolidates its footprint into a long line with 9 million residents and only a footprint of about 34 kilometer square. Infrastructure aided by technology can make it end-to-end travel in 20 minutes. Of course, that makes it zero carbon, no cars. AI leveraged technology can make autonomous services, reducing time and effort. So basically, this is an example of design informing technology and technology in the end aiding design. So another view is tech advanced buildings do not always have to look futuristic or out of a sci-fi movie. So for example, this building is a basic building using cork as a facade material. But the process that makes this interlocking tiles is using 21st century construction techniques, but it's a very basic, sustainable natural material, not harming any trees, but has durability and insulation properties. So it's the technology that comes in after. This is another example of newspaper wood, which is a very basic material that is used as a building material. So what's important in all this environment is about digitization. Digital technologies easily allow us to manage, manipulate, and build complex design processes and throughout construction and the overall development. But it also helps us track performances, and this energy and data that's stored, the data that's stored, enhances us to make better environments for the humans. So we understand their behaviors, and in the end, actually design as human as a central, keeping human as central aspect. And of course, the possibilities are endless. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Priya. And
coming from a technology side, last 20 years I've been working on different technologies we have evolved. This is one community I'm sorry to say this, but I'm staying straight. I always felt that you are more now fascinated by design and various things. You proved me wrong today. Since morning, I'm hearing so much about conscious design, sustainability, net zero. I think you stolen my heart. I think this is at the core of our strategy at Schneider Electric. For us, we are a global specialist in energy management and sustainability solutions. And I think I'm very, very happy to be here with all of you and looking forward to partnering with all of you in building the better future and a better planet. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. So please stay back on stage because you're on the panel with us. May I invite our moderator and all our panelists to please take stage.
All right, thank you for those views which have already been shared, and each one have taken their position. There have been some divergences, there have been a lot of polarization, so we would still be trying to provoke a few kind of points of view, but just to make it interactive at any point, because you are the same fraternity, so they have the privilege to be sitting on a little higher platform, but you have equal voice, so any point, and we will have to optimize this session's time, because we heard lunch is going to be delayed otherwise. So we need to be smarter here, and for that, anytime either you can raise a question and point directly. I'm just going to be hiding behind the podium, thankfully. And otherwise, if you're shy, if you want to be in the video, you can raise your arm and say a question. If you want to be silent, you can. Everybody has a pad not for the photograph, but for you to use it to take back home as well as to share it here. Okay. So first, let's hear the opening kind of points of view based on what they've said. I would begin as a good gentleman, lady being the first here, and lady also represents the different continents present. So I think she, along with Mr. Gulati, is a right deserved candidate to be asked this question. That we think always of the continent that okay, India being primitive, traditionally bound, etc., as a tag, and okay, land of antiquity, always say about India, and Singapore and the developed world, so to say, and the technology is at the forefront. Now you have your foot at both of these. You've at least worked with different continents and so forth. So what do you say is the predominant, whether a difference in terms of generating, conceiving architecture because of higher or lower presence of technology in the way that you operate, or you operate differently for India and differently for Singapore, please?
So personally, I feel it's all boils down to the mindset of the client, the stakeholders involved. So I've noticed that outside India, probably because it's a little more omnipresent, it's easier for me or my staff to actually talk about the value add of having technology in your designs. But and in India, it's not. It depends on the sector and the project. So it takes a little longer process, of course, economically benefits of it. So it's definitely a challenge in terms of, I mean, like simple things like even facade lighting. Most clients would like to stick with the traditional way of doing things because of mindset issues about, oh, what if it breaks down and things like that. So I would say.
So do you think that when you want to realize your idea, you look at the context and what it can provide? Like Corbusier, he had to be shown concrete in India. And luckily in Ahmedabad we had PRL, Physical Laboratory, by Mr. Kamlin there before him, and Mr. Doshi took him to that particular site to see what kind of brut baton or the kind of concrete that was coming in. So when you work in Nepal, would you have thought differently for its realization in terms of technological support than you work in Singapore?
Definitely, I'm having an issue in Nepal as well because of course we proposed a very sustainable advanced design, but the skill set is an issue. So we're trying to get contractors to come and train the labor over there, but of course using materials that are available within the region of few kilometers.
So the realm of technology is getting it realized and contextually appropriated. That's what I think Mr. Gulati is the silent of the lot, but his work speaks about integration of technology. And again, having worked in all kind of continents, probably, maybe you can share the opinion of yours on this.
So, Gensler is borderless when it comes to the teams that work together. The way we work across Gensler is seamless. We are all connected through technology, obviously. So whenever we're designing any project or take up any assignment anywhere in the world, so we have 50 offices across the globe. So it's not about putting a piece of art which we've created previously into another continent. It has to be from grassroots. You have to understand the context. Let's say we are doing a project in India. So the way we deliver projects is trying to do the right thing for the clients, and how do we do it, and how do we bring the best knowledge to our clients is what is happening across the globe, the best that's happening across the globe, but also contextualizing it. So it's not teams that are isolated within Gensler and working from US or from let's say Europe or maybe Tokyo doing a project in India. There are always these teams are all mixed teams. They are people who are from here. There are designers who work together. So it's all contextualized. It's never in isolation. It's not. So nobody will take up a project in India without consulting with the India office. So we don't compete against each other. We work together. So whenever a client comes to us, we get the best minds for that particular project. Let's say there is an airport which is to happen or an air terminal building. So we will go to our aviation practice area leaders and say, okay, this is something which we're doing in India. How do we do it? But then there will be designers from here who will be guiding them constantly that we can't do these things in India. What is it that you can do in India? What is the climate? So, and with technology, with simulation, like you can feed in any climatic condition and get the result. So it's not rocket science now. One example is the second tallest tower in the world, which is the Shanghai Tower. When we built it, almost 16 offices collaborated to make that happen. So that's how seamless we are, that's how borderless we are. So I don't think we can go wrong by hiring somebody who's an international designer, at least with Gensler, because there's always contextualization.
So that's good to know that it's kind of seamless cross-continental collaboration, and yet when it comes to which context you're operating, you are giving more onus for conceptualizing design to the local kind of a team. But in that, do you get so much technological support from the rest of them, or they just sit behind and look at how things are coming out?
No, so like I said, technological tools, we all work on frameworks. Yeah, it's a single model that everybody is working on. So technology helps multiple designers to work on a single model. So it's never like anything is being done in isolation and people don't know it. So the team is always aware what's going on, what's there in the model. And now people are asking for digital twins of their buildings, like facility managers are asking for it so that they can map their equipment in those digital twins. So it's going to the next level, and yeah, it's all like we say, it's about what we do. Designers is just enriching the human experience. So like technology or whatever we do, it's all about, we use it to enrich the human experience in these buildings, in these workplaces.
Thank you, because I saw that when I was asking this question to Ms. Priya, you're shaking your head that no, India or other places, it's very reassuring. When it comes to design, it's finally the chemical notes are here that matters than the rest of the thing. Having talked of continental differences, I'll ask Mr. Nilanjan here that you've been working in Kerala, in Kashmir, and in Gurgaon or Noida, which when we took at the map of that, they come at a very different context. Being in different contexts, does that change your attitude to technological integration into your architecture? I know architecture would be different, but how do you think of technologies there?
So like I said, technology has always been an enabler, and our work is always, I think, all architects' work is very contextual. We look at local materials, local culture, tradition, the site, the climate, and I think that itself dictates the technology that we have to use. And I think the local people and the local available technology, how they have been using it, all we as designers need to do is use it in a more contemporary way, the forms, materials, and other aspects. Otherwise, it remains a craft. So whenever we use traditional materials or traditional even crafts, we contemporize it and using contemporary technology. I think that's where technology comes in as an enabler.
So, stone is a stone, but instead of scooping out and making cave, would you cut it in a saw and nut bolt it to make a structure to contemporize the technology of the same material?
So we have, in Kashmir when we worked, they have this khatam band that they call on Dhaje Devari, which is this lattice work, and they have been doing it for generations. Now we changed that form into a very contemporary geometric form, which we took in as jalis also at places using stone, because using now CNC cutting machines, we can do that. I think that's upgrading the craft to a different level.
All right. Picking up on the jali, architect Kutubji here, on Walk project, both in office and then you've also done the institute. So again, I mean, by building typology, does the predominance of technology change? You've also done religious structures. So for example, if it was any religious structure, would it be more technology savvy or it would be more something else, let's say light coming in rather than this? So by the typology of building, does the predominance of technology change?
Yeah, for sure, depending on the usage of the building, the occupancy of the building, everything changes. So whether we use a jali, which is there in a commercial building in Dubai, which was facing the west and had a certain purpose, and it was created for a certain sustainable and a contextual reason. Similarly, when we take the jali at the mosque at Kanpur, it's a totally different concept. So the jali aesthetically also at Dubai is totally different, which is more to do with taking the Indian element out there, with the Indian color, and still they are working on the climatic conditions of Dubai out there, but putting it in a very modern fashion out there. While when we talk of the jali at Kanpur, at the mosque, it's a totally different thing, where we are trying to take the light from the north and the south also. So one was to curtail the light in that context, and one was to allow to filter light, because the west was a dead wall and that was making the mosque sustainable, and still allowing the light and clear play of light and shadow to the beautiful Islamic pattern jari which was there on the north and the south. So depending on the functionality, depending on the contextual part of it, depending on the sustainability of the structure, the element keeps on changing. So an element has a different purpose.
You stick to the kind of primordial element of light and its spatial construct, and yet try and do it through the medium, contemporary medium, and apply it in aesthetics. It's a great integration of that sort. Architect Dineshji here. You've been talking about optimizing technology. We heard technology over different continents making a difference or not in integration of architecture. We saw across geography of India, whether it does that or not, across the different typology. I want to ask you, along the different stages of design, when you say optimizing technology, so one is visualization and conceptualization, then is construction and realization, and then is operation and then subsequent maintenance. So where do you think technology in your work, or otherwise what you would have liked it to be seen in the work?
Well, firstly, I personally have not been able to catch up with technology, to be very frank. The speed at which technology moves has somehow been too fast.
But do you feel left out, or you feel confident that, okay, I'm going by, there's nobody behind me?
I feel good that I am able to manage an office of more than 35 architects who are so technologically savvy, and me who does not even know how to open an AutoCAD.
But they still say yes, sir.
Yes.
That's good.
So what happens is that, when you talk of using technology or something, I have come out at a time when we were taught paper is cheap. And we had all sizes of paper, we had sizes of drafting boards and things and all. So there was something like a scale which would always be sort of seen. And today, I find it very difficult personally to even imagine on the same size of a screen a 125-acre project or a 60-40 project. Because the scale which we were taught at that time is just not there. It's impossible to have it because the size of the screen doesn't change.
Sure.
So that's what I say. I've been personally left out. But when you're talking of technology, the office definitely has been, because without technology today you cannot run an office.
But is technology the computer you're mentioning, or technology in terms of thought process? You think the younger people come up with a different mindset and the outcome, or it's your sketch they're only trying to realize?
No, they try to do a sketch on the computer, whereas I try to force them to use a paper and pencil, because I feel they can move their
I
mind.
think the sketch on computer is different than what you draw on pen, paper and pencil.
Definitely.
Okay.
There is a major difference
So
between.
that's a generational thing, you think?
Yeah.
All right. Mr. Srinivas, sorry, it was an architect's bias that I took architects first, but actually I've said
Yeah, I know.
let's go the last
What do you find?
so, last one as a final say. First of all, I have to congratulate on your promos. I thought it was selling the high tech with a very humane dimension of it. And I think that's the core of this discussion, that how technology can be closer to humanity or bring in the humane aspects of it, sustainable aspects of it. That's what we've been two benchmarks of technology. But as a producer, you have to be avant-garde, you have to be kind of forerunner. So how do you do that in terms of visualizing what the future would be about, you coming first, and then of course you get the applicator, that's the architect, to join in. So your vision in a way comes before that, or you are the follower after having the bandwagon, you say, okay, now we'll produce this.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. Firstly, I'm glad that I'm here in this gathering. You said about touching lives, humans. I think for me, technology is no more a buzzword. Technology is something which enables to touch lives, how we make a difference to the problem, how we make a difference to the society in large. That is more about technology. Yes, the versions could be different. We at Schneider Electric build technologies or work on innovation which are meaningful, which are purpose-driven, I think, which really create impact on lives, the real lives on ground. Okay. So that's the fundamental element of our design these days. Otherwise, yes, a decade back or 15 years, 20 years back, if you ask about our innovation, that used to be, I wouldn't say not meaningful, but yes, it used to be more driven by other elements. Okay, you have a commercial element, you have a, of course, applicator element, different element. But today, technology is more meaningful. It is changing. Innovations used to be only for a niche class. Okay, today people talk innovations for mass, which touch the last mile. So for us, it is at the very, very core of our strategy in terms of building technologies which are more meaningful and more impactful to the generations to come. That's where we talk about more on sustainability. While also now there are technologies enabler. I could see a lot of people talking on different elements. Probably for us, design is something which will change. I think metaverse is something which everyone is aware today. I think the moving forward, we are moving towards a metaverse age. These kind of technologies are really going to change a lot in the way we think about design. It's an immersive, it is more visualizing, it is more real time. No? So I think these are the technologies which are going to disrupt the whole story in the future, help designers to make things better. So we believe in adopting all these technologies so that we can make things much faster, bring in agility in our design. Otherwise, we used to run projects which are decades. And at the end of the decade, we close those files and say it is over, it's not no go. So today, design is much faster. Technology has brought in an agility in the whole system and more transparency, boundaryless. We can work in multi-continent environment, as you said. So definitely, yes, I think for us, technology, digital is more meaningful, more impactful for our practices.
Thank you. Just to complete the circle, can we have from the audience, you wanted to say or ask something? Please go ahead.
I just want to add that mostly as designers we've followed technology, but I'm aware of especially product designers, they predict what technology would be coming and innovation, and they pre-design the products. Even some architects I know of Zaha Hadid Studio, they design their own software. They don't work on Revit. Gehry, for example, they design their own software which they share with their consultants and contractors, otherwise they can't work on their projects. So sometimes the designers, yes, they customized it, so as designers we need to predict what technology can do for us and use it as an enabler in our design.
Yeah, I think good example. I would add one more point here. In the recent thing, we found that a lot of times it is difficult to reach large mass of architects and bring seamless things what is required on drawing board. So we're working with a company called Dressy now, where working on a platform which will help designers to choose products and different things from a library, and also through augmented reality or a virtual reality, get a feel how these products and look like in your buildings, look like in your things, and how would be the ambience, what it would be. So, of course, these are the things which will for sure help people to build a better design.
Okay, so I have a question. So we've just gone through, last 2 years have been tough for everyone, and there was a article which I read about what happened if the pandemic struck 5 years back, from when it actually did, and where we wouldn't actually, the whole result of the pandemic would have been far worse if it hadn't been for the technology reached at that point to do all that. The fact that millions of people went through with their education whilst sitting at home, went through with their, did most of the jobs, I don't know how efficiently, that's a different question, but did that, all that went through because of technology. And the fact that theoretically a person sitting in rural India can probably access a lecture given by someone in Harvard. I feel that technology is going to define how our future is. And you're talking about sustainable, and we're talking about, and I think intrinsically at that cellular level, I feel the lifestyles are going to change, and those are we can be romantic architects, but those are that cellular level change is what is eventually even going to give us the sustainability which we want.
Okay, thank you. I believe it's a point of view and not a question, I suppose. Okay. All right. Anybody else wants to interject here? Yes, please. There, the first row.
Please identify yourself. The smart man. Hi, I'm Sandeep. I represent Jaguar. I think it's we are one of the largest manufacturer of bath and light products in India, but I still feel, and it's not a question, it's just a thought. Eventually, between design and technology, to me, design rules. That's the technology has its own.
From a product manufacturer,
we at times it's very very empowering. It just changes perspective. The COVID example, the way we able to reach out to people, the mobile apps and all that technology has, but the heart, as Kamalji said, the consciousness, the design, the purist. So somewhere that aspect should never be left out. That's the heart and core, and from there everything flows.
And so in Jaguar, actually, it was a design being their SOP to sell in a way, and design had in itself consciousness for both the shape, the conservation of water, etc. Any other thing coming from anywhere? The last benchers usually are the notorious to falter everything being said. Okay, so continuing on what you said, it's not my response I want to superimpose, but it's a lead to the question that was going to be next to Ms. Priya here. Actually, do you think we would have lost out if we didn't talk to somebody in New York? Actually it's a technology that sprayed the pandemic. It came top down from the Prime Minister to Secretary, and never in the last to Dharavi or the slums or the villages. So I think it was the technology that spread that virus. Otherwise China, it would have been only in China. So think another way, we always think of centralization and globalization when we think, as against the decentralization and localization. You would have never had a problem with the dollar falling to a farmer in a Zumri Talaiya. Why on earth do we have to link the two? So it's the same one when she talked about this line. What was wrong with the kasbas? Each being self-sufficient, knowing each other, interacting with each other, not having to take a car. Now we think car is a must because we must reach from South Bombay as your working place to somewhere Vashi or now even Panvel or whatever to your staying place. Instead, if you take linear again, I've compared this even with distances. If you take Netherlands, with public transport, you are in 8 minutes to a very differently cultured and geographically placed new city. 40 minutes it takes from Amsterdam to Rotterdam. In between you cross some 5 major cities, which economy is different, governance is different, geography is different, etc. And it is the same distance from north to south of Mumbai. Now why do we have to create Bruhan Mumbai and then say you create this? Could Andheri be a self-governing kasbah? Could Vashi be a self-governing kasbah? So talking of that as a kind of contrary to or a parallel or a better to those kasbahs as decentralized, self-sufficient, local economy and least interference to the mega structure, and then we optimize. Please.
I don't think it's like an apple-to-apple comparison. Obviously, the line is a new project. It's on barren land, and it's a concept that is projected to solve problems because of distances, but you still have the same environment. You still have the physical interaction going on. You have the ambience. You have everything. But of course, for an existing city like Mumbai, and when you want to, I think we can look at technology in the way of creating little nodes or transit-oriented developments, like how they do in Singapore, where everything, you look at a problem and find a solution, and of course aided by technology, right? So that makes it possible.
True. So technology coming in to connect people rather than isolate. Just for example, we had a high-rise as a model with Mr. Korea's Kanchenjunga, where it became like bungalow in the sky. The fact that you go higher up, your connection to the ground is lost. So why not everybody get a terrace? As against high-rise as a speedy construction with mass-produced component. So which way is technology taking you? Is it taking you away from the humane quality for living versus? So I think where is it helping and where is it becoming a kind of a misoriented direction?
As I said in my 3-minute presentation, for me, I feel it's an enabler, it's augmented, because we're not moving away because we're digitizing everything. No. We're actually providing better experiences and we're actually customizing more for the human and not taking away like greenery or anything on that end.
Yeah. Nilanjan, you talked about tactile.
Add something to what you just pointed out. If we are looking, see, it's not one against the other. Technology has always connected people. I strongly feel that. So we cannot talk about this Kasbah and a self-sufficient concept, because if that were the case, then this iGen would be a Bangalore-centric event and only the architects of Bangalore would be attending it. I would not have been invited from Delhi.
Would it be wrong? Why Bangalore?
I wouldn't have met Priya, I wouldn't have met you, I wouldn't have met Sanjay, I wouldn't have met Jaisim after a year, or Kamal, and I think that's a beautiful thing. It is connecting all of us.
Yes. Okay. Well, point is that in that, if we saw each other on a Skype, we had our technology to connect, but we flouted rules to physically meet each other. So that's the human fact, which the technology could not come over. It's a tool which is nice, I can talk to
if you
everybody.
consider the carbon footprints of
It
all of
doesn't
us.
substitute. And that's where I was coming to, just for teasing. It's a short answer because it says 0000. Now it's going to be shocking the stage or something like that, electric thing here. So you said about tactile faces, just for the teaser, I'm saying that Jaguar has come up with a rain shower with multiple foam, the lighting, the sound, and if it adds a jasmine flower flavor into that, would it be a great idea? Or you would have a jasmine creeper, not always smelling, sometimes in not season, as a kind of thing that you would have.
Yeah, it's a fantastic idea. I think Jaguar should consider that. It's a multi-sensorial kind of experience. Why not?
Yes.
I think rather than just feeling the water, if you can hear it, you can smell it, you can taste it. Why not?
So, आजकल फॉग चल रहा है और वो परफ्यूम नहीं लगाता what kind?
So there'll be choices, I'm sure.
Okay, no, like you said very well, Yohani Palasma actually in his book Eyes of the Skin, he says door handle is the first shake hand to the building, So how does it introduce you? We had shaken hand with the Blue Star representative Ford here. So how does that express?
You see, the most beautiful thing is when we visit these palaces, let's say 400-year-old, or the Vodiyar Palace, this brass handle, which is polished by centuries of millions of people touching it, holding it. You are automatically enticed to hold that brass handle. I think that's a beautiful sensor.
Right. So, you say you're the dinosaur of technology, not I mean in a bad way, but how would you bend the straight line of technology into non-linear one in your work?
See, firstly, my own take on technology is that, it's made us so dependent on it.
Yes.
Right? And also what has happened is that our confidence levels, our own personal confidence levels have been shaken up. Previously, when we would do a sketch and we would give it to the client, we would be confident of doing it.
Yes.
Today, we use technology. And the people who are doing the sketch on this, on the concept, on the technology, they would do it in this angle, that angle, and all the things just because they are not confident as to what they are presenting, or their confidence is a bit shaken up.
Yes. Just to quickly pick on and quick answer to that, when you say that, you with a gut response using your upper part create a particular direction for design and get it validated by the software. Versus now software telling you that you must have 22% of opening. So, customize these kind of tools for yourself. How much of that becomes a substitute or a kind of tool to reduce the human intervention, or how much does it become more of a furtherance sort of a cost?
All these tools are enablers and they provide you choices. So the human brain is not going anywhere. It's what you think. You're trying to sketches, let's say on a computer, what you said, when you're sketching by hand, you can only see one angle. But tools give you a choice to look at every angle and every aspect of that project before taking the right decision. Sometimes decision making becomes much easier. Let's say we are talking about augmented reality, immersive design. So you can actually get decisions from your clients much faster if you immerse them into those buildings and show them what they will see when they are inside the building. See, we did a project there, the client was not sure what this facade is going to do, like how they will feel when they are inside the building. How do you show that? So you do sketches from inside, or you immerse the person inside, they get a sense of scale and everything, and they take a decision, they say, okay, this is beautiful, let's go ahead with that. So it's an enabler, it helps you take decisions faster, it gives you choices. Yeah, it's all about
so
that.
there's always been a challenge in architecture that you have conceived things, it's very clear in your mind, but how do you share that with even your team member and then subsequently to the
It's your clients, it's your, even when you're talking to your team members.
Yeah, I see one thing which we have not discussed is that what technology has done to our clients, for the end users. Now they are very much enabled, aware. Of course, there's a nuisance part also when they come up with a Pinterest image. We've all faced that. But I think they are much more aware thanks to technology about what's happening around. And that's really, as an advantage, comes as an advantage to us as designers.
Right, final question. It's already 18 minutes of the shops from there. So, just a teaser, how much of kind of a visualizer of what the world should be as a technologist? Would you play a role, or would we be a smart marketeer that follow the manufacturer now that it's all the environment, speak of the product from the environment point of view, or you think that you are taking your own role and lead to see that that should be the vision of how the planet should be for further, decades, and you will apply and impose that to the application.
Yeah, I think you said it right. Our job as a technology partner is to look how the environment is moving and what is the need of the hour. I think that's very, very critical, and I think we are at Schneider Electric at the forefront of it. And we design, build stories which are for the future, and then we come to applicators like you. Now, I will give you a simple example of smart home, which my colleague Nandan presented in the morning. This is something which took a research of about 2 years for us, because smart home is something which has been for decades, but I did not see penetration even 1% in India, because it was always showcased as was convenience, comfort, luxury. Okay. Today, smart is more meaningful of sustainability. Okay. So till yesterday, it was more about luxury and other things, and it was only for a niche class. Today, we bring in smart home as a story to reach masses. Okay, one, importantly, to bring in a lot of efficiency, both existing homes, new homes, renovation, so that design element becomes more simplified. Now, I think these are the certain examples which we predominantly work on areas where we want to reach masses and make sure the future is more better, not just picking up those brownies. I know that's a topic which is everybody is talking, but for us it is a fundamental and the foundation of our business.
Thank you. So just to conclude and summarize that on one hand we have the product design and thinking on the same line, and I would say that sometimes that help jumping the gun is, as architect think everything needs to channelize through us, but products of that sort directly reaches to the client, and clients themselves start thinking that yeah, it should be 5-star, it should be energy conscious, it should be less water consuming, and so on and so forth. So even bypassing us, that helps generate the overall awareness and even application independent of architects. So from there to we saw Kamal Bhai's work, as well as architect Jaisim is here, and they managed to create a very organic form, very, very lucid forms without a software or a technical support. To we see it is just head and mind. So to the kind of the aircraft or what you call aerodrome design that they have done and using the parametrics to come up with some certain kind of form. So it's a whole range, and I think all of us have, as I said, head above the heart to analyze, to interpret, and make it appropriate. There's nothing good or bad. There's nothing to take brownie out of something. It's not to feature in the first page of the magazine, but it's being right to be able to cure the patient. And I would say that while the head may be about the heart, we need a second heart. First one, the impulse. Second, to interpret. And third one, to think in a humane and sustainable way that it is appropriate. Thank you so much for giving me this.